Hey, Rebel Bankers, welcome back. I'm your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome to the show. I've got an awesome guest today, one that's got a ton of experience. How much experience? 19 years, 800 flips, currently running 7 companies. And not only is he running 7 companies, been in the game for 19 years and done all those flips, he's been through the same struggles you and I have through the whole journey. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to get into his journey. We're going to get into his success. And we're going to talk about how he did it so you all can get a grasp on this. So today's guest, I have Tony Javier with me, and it's Real Estate Masters is the name of his company, one of his companies, but we're going to talk primarily about that one. And Tony, before we get into your story, let me just kind of talk to all the people watching this podcast. All of you are here for one reason or the other, but you're all here on a journey to becoming a rebel banker. And on that journey, you're out there seeking knowledge, trying to find little bits and pieces of whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. But let me let you in on a secret of the wealthy, a secret of the successful. If all you focus on is gathering and getting education and getting knowledge, you're doing it wrong, because the person that told you that knowledge is power was not entirely correct. Knowledge is only power if you apply that knowledge. So in today's podcast, when you're listening to Tony's story, look for the golden nuggets. Look for the correlations between you and Tony's journey and try to find something that you can apply immediately. But I'm going to put you to the test. I always love making people take action. So here's what I'd like all of you to do. I want you to take action on something, and I'm going to give you something for free. I'm going to give you a copy of my book, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. Or you can get this one too, the Private Money Guide. Whichever one you want, you can have for free. All you need to do is go to my website, chrisnoggle.com. One swipe of your index finger, and there it is. It says free book. Click that, take action. And that is your first step, because what you just did is you took something you learned and you applied knowledge. And I want you to take that same thing through this entire podcast. And when you hear Tony talk about his journey and the things he does, I want you to take action. So Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris, man. I'm excited about this morning, getting my morning kicked off.
That's awesome, man. So I think I need another coffee to get this thing rolling. So Tony, let's start with, what are your businesses? Can you tell my audience a little bit about what you do? And then after that, let's take a journey back in time.
Yeah, so I started 19 years ago. Technically, this will be my 20th year in business. Started with a program called No Down Payment by Carlton Sheets, which a lot of people have that bought education back about 20 years ago. And unlike a lot of people, I ended up applying it. Just like you said, man, knowledge is power only if you apply it. So ended up buying my first property within a few months. And here we are today with multiple companies. So Real Estate Masters is a company that I started about 5 years ago as a mastermind company, doing mastermind for real estate investors. And it's evolved into adding gap funding, as well as showing people how to do TV or use TV as a platform to help them find more real estate deals, to build credibility, to help with every single aspect of their business by being on TV and getting your information in front of other people. On top of that, I've got co-working space and some other businesses, but it all started with real estate. So 20 years ago, real estate, first many properties I brought on private lenders. So I've been doing bringing on private lenders for 20 years now, starting with my dad that helped me with my first couple deals. Ended up finding an investor that believed in me, invested in me in my next 10 properties. And close to 1,000 deals later, I still use private money. I still do deals with other investors. Now I actually take my own money that I've made from those deals and lend out to other investors as well. So it's been a big evolution of starting my business to where I am now, and it was a long journey. 10 years ago was kind of a breaking point for me. The first 10 years of business, I had some success, but I was burning the candle at both ends for 10 years. I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was working until 10 o'clock at night, just tiring myself out. Brought me some financial success, but a lot of burnout. I was working so hard, I didn't realize what the holes were in my business. I had the wrong people working for me. Actually, that was probably the main thing, is I had the wrong people working for me. So 10 years ago, for the second time, I had to fire my whole staff for stealing, for not showing up, for many different reasons. And so I had to take over my whole business again. And I just hit a breaking point where, I I could go pretty deep into that, but I went into a pretty dark time for a little bit. So I made a big decision and I said, I am going to quit hiring bad people. Like that was just a breaking point. Sometimes you have to go through breaking points to make that breakthrough and realize what direction you need to go in. So I ended up hiring my sister, who's still with me now, almost 10 years later. She helped come into the business, clean things up. I paid her twice as much as my previous assistant before. And it was just a game changer. So that just totally freed up a lot of my time. She did the work of like 3 people that I had previously. So when you hire good people, they take so much off you and produce great results. And that allowed me to figure out what the next step was. So started building out different departments. We have marketing department, project management department, I own a lot of rental properties, built that out, transaction coordination. I basically built out the departments to where if there's something that happens in my business, it goes to that department and they're responsible for it. So as of now, I basically just work a few hours in my real estate investing business, have a great team that runs it. So that's allowed me to open other businesses, create opportunities beyond podcasts like this, start my own podcast, and do a lot of great higher level things to where now I work on things that I love to work on as opposed to burning myself out in things that I realized I didn't love doing. And I've got great people that run that business for me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of takeaways and a lot of personal takeaways for me as well in there. And one of the things is compartmentalizing your business and making each department, reliant on themselves without you. And this is a journey that I've been doing in my business over the last year, where we've been creating all these different departments, and I don't even want to hear from them if there's a problem. They figure it out. Then we do a huddle twice a week, every week, and that's where those problems are flushed out. And we've done that, but you figured it out pretty early on. And was that strictly because of the sheer burnout that you were experiencing because you were too busy working in your business, not working on your business?
Completely. I was so entrenched in my business. I thought I had to be the one looking at the properties, putting them under contract. I thought, no one else can negotiate like I can. Like I know the numbers, I know the deal. And I thought I had to do that. Project management the same way. I'm like, I know what walls need to be taken out. I know what contractors need to be brought in. Like, I just thought that I, as the business owner, cared more than everybody else and had the most experience. So I needed to have my hands on that. So it was that breaking point that hit me that like, I realized once I had a really good hire that a lot of that stuff that I was giving away was actually now being done correctly and not coming back to me. And I could start focusing my time on other things. So then it's like, okay, now I need to hire the next great person that can take the things off of me that I don't want to do. So 10 years ago, I lived in Wichita, Kansas, hired my sister. At that point, again, I just needed to figure out how to systemize my business. I hired a coach. I started going to masterminds. I started doing things that were working on my business. And within about 4 to 5 years, I had my business completely automated, all my departments figured out, hired someone to help take over my company to where I moved to San Diego, California, which is almost a couple thousand miles away from my market in Kansas. And now I operate my businesses remotely, get to live in sunny San Diego, love the lifestyle here, but then also buy cheap real estate in the Midwest. So it's been a tough journey, but it's one that was definitely worth it. Learned a lot of lessons and probably wouldn't change it for the world, man.
That's awesome. Now let's go back to, you flipped a lot of houses and so have I, but you've got me by quite a bit. Flipping, is something a lot of people they find it by watching a TV show, right? So that's how I did it. And that's how so many other people do it. They watch a TV show, they start seeking the knowledge, they land in some type of an event or some type of an online thing. And all of a sudden now they're ready to go. But once they get into flipping, they realize it's a lot harder than they think. They get into it and, they might borrow money from a private lender and everything looks great in 23 minutes on a show. And when you're actually in it, that 23 minutes is 6-7 months. And it is 6-7 months of constantly writing checks, paying money out, paying other people, and just waiting and waiting for that magic day when you actually get the money back. And when you get it back, it just seems like you spent all this energy and effort and it's, that 20 or 30 grand you made, on paper seemed good, but you're like, wow, that was a lot of work. What made you continue on, 800 or more flips when those first few for some people are so relentless?
That's a great question. I have a personality that just works and works and works, man. It started with, when I was 5, 6 years old in sports, I was wanted to be the best at everything I did. I excelled in 3 sports. I was, played some college football. Like I just always like worked really hard and wanted to be the best at whatever I did. So, struggling for 10 years didn't stop me. It was like, I'm going to figure this out. At some point, maybe I should have quit. Maybe I could have gone into something a little more relaxing, a little more, fulfilling. But luckily, I did stick through it and got people in place to do the things I don't love to do. Because I think that's where people get in trouble is they get into a business and they work so hard doing things that they don't love to do and they feel like they've got to have control of them. I mean, I have stuff happen all the time. We had a closing yesterday that was supposed to go through and found out it's going to be delayed at least 5 weeks if it even goes through. And normally I would have stressed out and been like getting on the phone with people like, why can't we figure this out? And I just emailed my assistant and just said, okay, we'll figure it out and let me know when we can close. It took me 2 seconds to just shoot that email out and say, okay, rather than stressing over it all day and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I've just learned how to deal with it. I've been through enough struggles that, if 10 years ago you would have told me I am where I am now, I would be like, dude, get me there. And, now that I am where I am, I still want to be at a higher level. So there's always that drive of like wanting to do better. But it was just, I think, sheer drive to get through it. And then realizing where my weak points were, hiring those people to fill those weak points. And to go back to what I was saying before is I thought I was the best at everything that I was doing in my business, but I can literally look at my business now and say every single person that's filled those roles that I thought I was the best at are actually better than me at it. They're more detailed than I am. They're more patient than I am. They're not as emotionally involved in it. And they take ownership of it. And, I couldn't say that 15 years ago, even 12 years ago. It was like 10 years ago, that breaking point that made me realize that I need to get better people in place, get better systems, let go of control. And, the more control you have, or you feel like you have to have, the less control you do have is how
Absolutely.
I feel.
Yeah. And the same thing here, as we've expanded, as we've grown, we've hired people and put them in charge of divisions of the company. And you're absolutely right. There's that magic thing that happens is you think you're the best at everything because you created it. You're the creator. You're the ultimate. You've been, the person that scrubbed the toilets to now where you're at. Nobody can do the job better. And then you hire somebody that's qualified for a role and they do the job way better. It's not because they're better than you. It's because they're focused on what they have to do. And you're focused on 10 different things working in a business, or being the owner of a business. And I think a lot of people that get into business, that world of entrepreneurship that everybody wants to be part of, when they get in there, in the beginning, no matter what, you're always going to be working in the business. That's where we all start. And as you work in the business grows, you stay working in the business. But I would say very few, and you might even know better than me, very few business owners, entrepreneurs ever get out of that stage of working in the business to where they're working on the business. I know for me, it happened by accident. It happened in the early 2000s. I was running skateboard, snowboard shops, traveling around being a pro snowboarder. And then all of a sudden the planes hit the tower and the recession hit. And I was forced to get out of my business and go get a job. And then I happened to love that job as an advisor. But doing that forced me out of working in the business to then working on the business. And like you said, that was that moment. I was young. I was in my early 20s. I realized that other people could do my job way better, but very few people ever have that moment where they get out of their business. Like, what advice would you give to this audience on that one thing?
I think so. I run mastermind groups and do a lot of things with entrepreneurs, and I see honestly the same struggle almost every single conversation that we have with our high level groups is like trying to figure out how to get more by doing less. And I recommend that people take some time to sit down and realize what it is they're doing and what's most important. So I've taken groups through an exercise of mapping out or writing down every single thing that you do throughout the day and everything you do in your business in general. And sorry, I don't have the thing in front of me, but it's an exercise of basically quantifying how important it is, quantifying the dollar value on every single hour you work on that thing. Take the things that you do not like the most and that have the least dollar productive time value to it, or just value in general. Figure out how to get those things off your plate, get them out of your system, out of your everyday life. Hire someone or delegate them, or even just delete them. Some things that you do, you'll realize that if you do this exercise, if you just delete that out of your day, we have this conversation right before, it's like, what can you get out of your schedule, out of your life that has no results for you whatsoever? Is it browsing Facebook? Is it, there's things that just don't bring any value to you, but for some reason you do them and takes a lot of time. And then take those things that you love to do and have the most dollar value and do a lot of those. For some people, it's podcasts. For some people, it's raising private money. For some people, it's what's the next new marketing idea that I can put in place that can completely change my business. So I can't remember what the question you asked was, but I guess that's my piece of advice on whatever it is you just asked.
It was really just like, what would be the advice on how somebody gets from working in their business to working on their business? That was sort of thing, but you answered that. So that was a good way to do it. And also too, let's go back to flips for just a second. Flips are also very money intensive. They require a lot of capital, and, it's very easy to scale them when you learn how to raise private money. I mean, much like what you teach and my book teaches, like how to raise capital. Once you learn that, it's not hard to raise money. And once you raise more, then that gives you the ability to do more. But eventually you can't forget that there's always going to be a cash flow problem, because in flipping, it takes so long. Just like you, that deal was supposed to close the other day. Now it might not close 5 weeks. If you got private money, that means now you've got another month and a couple of weeks that you got to pay interest and utilities and all these carry costs. But a lot of people struggle with that. So did you do something in your business where when you were flipping, you realized that cash flow struggle of doing the deals the way you were was a burden, and then you started ancillary businesses that kind of filled in that gap of the cash flow? Or how did you manage that?
Yeah. So back in 2007, 2008, I had kind of a mentor that I was talking to, and I mentioned, I know for a fact he made it was like 2.5, he told me the numbers, like $2.5 million that year. And so I talked to him about cash flow issues, and I said, you know what, I'm just having cash flow problems. I've got properties out of deals don't close. There's all kinds of things that happen, like you said, that just create cash flow problems. And he said something that really hit me. He said, you know what, I still have cash flow issues. And I'm like, what? You made $2.5 million last year and you have cash flow issues. And what happens is that, when you're doing a lot of stuff, there's money going out in different directions, right? Like I even have this sometimes where I'm like, I've got all this money, and then I figure out how to deploy a bunch of it in my gap funding deals or my deals or wherever I decide to put it. And then I'm like, wait a second, I've got, where'd all the money go? And then I've got to, get money back somehow, or get investors involved in some deals and things like that. So, I mean, it's, if you're doing it right, cash flow is always going to be a struggle, because you don't want a lot of money just sitting there not doing anything, right? I make a lot of return on my money, so I figure out how to deploy it. But for those who don't have the luxury of getting money right away because they've got assets, or they've got this or that, I guess you kind of mentioned it, is leverage yourself as much as you can with other people. There was a couple years later, I had another cash flow issue, and I'm like, we had several $100,000 in the bank. And then all of a sudden we're like dwindling down a little bit. And then I realized that I went through all my projects, and I had $10,000 into this project. I didn't realize I didn't have. I had 20,000 in this one, because we went over budget on properties, and we had holding costs and all this stuff. And I guess a couple things on that. One is I didn't borrow enough money for those deals, so I could have potentially had that money back and not stressed at that time that money wasn't there. And then the other thing is that you need to have metrics in place to track it. So now I have metrics to track how much money I have out into certain deals, certain projects, certain companies, so that I know that if there is a cash shortage, or I'm getting lower on cash in some different companies, I know where all the money is, so I can easily get that money back if I need to. So, people think that when you make it, or when you're successful, or when you get to a certain point, that you're not going to have to worry about money. But I don't necessarily stress as much about money, but there are still times where I have to juggle money in different companies in different places because I've deployed a bunch of money out in different projects and different deals. And I've got, companies that right now during the time that have been hit with, what's going on, and I've got to take money from one company, put it into another to cash flow certain parts of it. So it's an everlasting thing, I feel like, for the most part. And don't feel bad if you have those issues. That's just the game, you just got to figure out how to play it and make it work.
Man, just listening to you, we have way too much in common. It's just frightening. I hear this and I'm just thinking back. Yep, we've done all those things, and it's I guess that's just going to be what you find. And having a podcast as you do as well, you get to have really successful people on, and you get to talk to them about their journeys and what you find, folks. And all of you need to take this very seriously. All of us have the same problems, and it's the problems of success. That's what it is. That journey and all these problems, they're not really problems. They just mean you're doing something right. Cash flow, like, I love that you said that, because not many people would have said that. Your money, if you got a bunch of money sitting in your bank, you're going to be the next person broke. If you don't learn how to move your money, if you don't learn how to take your money and send those little marching men out to work to make you more money, you will never make it, because something will happen and it will completely knock you down and you will have nowhere to go. And if, you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'm sure. He talks about multiple, people always think having money in the bank is how they're successful. Wrong. Having multiple cash flow sources or multiple verticals that provide cash flow, that's the answer. And if your money's out there working, that's exactly what you have. But you also have a cash flow problem, because you have all your marching dollars out there working and they're putting money in. But if you needed a big dollars to go do something, well, back to the drawing board. And that's awesome that you mentioned that, because very few people understand that money has to constantly be moving, but that's a sign of success. So let's get into a little bit more about, like, how did you end up with all these different companies as you were going? Like, you have 7 companies today and you're calm and cool and collected and you've learned some things, but, like, how did that progression happen? How'd you go from 1 to 2 to 7?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I've had way more companies than that, and I kind of have the shiny object syndrome. I'm much better at seeing the shiny object and realizing how much money, time, and effort it's going to take and what it's going to bring back in return quickly, and taking the things that I know that are going to be worth it and diving into those, and taking the things that aren't going to produce what I want and going to take way too much time and money, and throwing those off to the side. So I've started many different things throughout my career. The 7 different companies now, I feel like, are the companies that I want to grow and keep. But again, like I said, I've been through many other multi-level marketing things and other things that I've dove into that just haven't quite worked out. And so, I've always been a visionary, and I think that's what most entrepreneurs are, visionaries. So if you read the book Traction, there's a visionary and there's an integrator. A lot of the people you have working for you are integrators. They know how to implement things. Actually, I'll start with the visionary. Visionary is the one that sees what needs to happen. They have the idea, they have the bright idea. They just don't always know how to implement it, right? Like Steve Jobs, he was a great visionary, and he had was it Steve Wozniak? It was kind of his integrator that helped make a lot of that happen. And so I mentioned hiring my sister 10 years ago. She was my integrator that helped me to grow that business, and I was the visionary of that business. So I've always had this vision of my real estate investing business, and she was the one that helped me to kind of build it out and get it to where it is today. And then with other things that I've come across, I've just seen different ideas and going, just like I did with real estate 20 years ago. When I read that course, it was like I all of a sudden had this vision of where it could go. Now it's way bigger now than I ever thought it would be. I planned on having 30 rental properties within my career. When I was 21, I'm like, if I can have 30 rental properties, that's going to be awesome. And I've got way over 100 rental properties now, and we're continuing to buy properties. So it's like having that vision of where you want to be. And I say things happen usually twice. They happen in your head and your vision, and then they happen in real life once you implement them. So I think the businesses just came out of the drive that I have to succeed, on top of me just having a pretty clear vision. Once I get something in my head, and just taking that drive and pushing it forward. And like I said, there's been a lot of shiny objects along the way, but when I have someone bring something to me, I always ask myself, how much time is this going to take? If it's going to take, if I'm going to have to work more than 40 hours a week now to implement this thing, I don't want to do it. I'm a strict 40-hour week guy now. I used to be an 80-hour week person. Now it's like, I want to concentrate heavily 40 hours a week and things that I love, that I want to grow, that will bring things to me and people that hopefully I can influence with it. And the things that are going to take way too much time and money, I don't even take time for that anymore. I can't always say that, but now I'm much more disciplined to do that.
And Tony, one of the things you're really kind of passionate about and doing a lot of now is gap funding. And I think my audience, probably some of them might know what it is. A lot of them are like, what is this gap funding thing? Because it's a niche business that isn't very common out there. So can we dive into that a little bit on what it is you do, how it helps people, and then how do you benefit from it?
Yeah, you're totally right. And that's why I started the business out of it. So I had a couple of years ago, I had a hard money lender come to me and say, I can get all these guys approved for hard money loans, but their cash flow, just like we talked about, they just don't have the cash. Either it's tied up in other projects, or they're a little bit newer in the business. They just haven't built up the cash and they need down payment money. So that's what gap funding is, basically filling the gap between what a first mortgage lender is willing to lend you and what you need to close that transaction. So over a couple of years, he would throw me some deals and I would fund them, just kind of, do some second liens on different properties, and it ended up working out really well. And earlier this year, I looked at the people that I helped that wouldn't have been able to do those deals had I not helped them. I looked at the return. I looked at not only return on investment, but return on time. I could invest in those deals and make money on those deals that I didn't do anything. Well, I guess my flipping business right now, I don't do as much in, but I can invest in those deals and have somebody else do the flips and make money on those. And so earlier this year, last year, I decided to make a business out of it. So I hired an assistant to run that business, and we just kind of created this model. I started deploying a lot of my own funds into these deals like I did before, and then realized there's huge demand for this, right? And I get 3 to 6 applications every single day. We just started the business actually a few months ago, with no marketing dollars. And we're getting 3 to 6 applications a day for people needing down payment money. So I can't even keep up with the demand. We're starting to raise money for that business to help fulfill those deals. But I'm taking on this business because I'm helping investors get deals done they normally couldn't get done. It doesn't take a lot of my time. I've got an assistant running that business right now, and I look at a couple deals a day that qualify for what we need, and it's highly leverageable. So I can bring other investors in on these deals and participate as well. So it's got many different aspects to what I like as a business that I like. It helps people. It's scalable. It doesn't take a lot of my time, and it's very rewarding. So that's one of the things under the Real Estate Masters brand that I have that I've started recently that a lot of people need, and it's crazy. There are no other companies out there doing it that I know of. So it's a blue ocean to me, and I love helping people.
Yeah, it is a neat business. It's it's a business that is very in need, because as people get into this business, they need the cash flow and they need that little extra money to get them over the hump, and you're providing that. So I think that's fantastic. On this entire 19-year journey, in wrapping it of this podcast, what would you say was your biggest external obstacle along the way?
Wow. External obstacles. Well, I'll start with saying a lot of my obstacles were internal. So there's a lot of internal things that
I gathered that. It's just exactly why I went to external.
Yeah. External. I would say people. I would say people for sure. You can, because like even the gap funding deals, going back to that, when I look at those, I don't just lend on the project. I lend on the person based on how they present their deal, based on how their conversation is with me, based on Also, who else is involved in the deal? So I'll call the contractors, I'll call the realtor, and I'll look at the team that's involved in this deal. And even if someone has no experience, if I feel like the people are, like I have a deal closing Monday, she's never done a deal before, but I could tell she is very put together. I can tell her team is put together, and I'm going to invest in that deal. I'm putting a lot of money into that deal, and it's because of the people around it. And I told you the first 10 years of my business, the people, man, it was a crazy journey the first 10 years looking back. And now to be where I am now compared to where I was 10 years ago, it's all about people. I mean, the right people in your business can make it. And even just like, going back to the gap funding deals, the main person that I look at other than the borrower is the contractor. That contractor can make or break the deal. So when someone says, I've got a deal, I'm not super experienced, this is my first deal, third deal, fifth deal, they don't have a lot of experience, I will dive into the contractor and just drill them. Like, what are your procedures? What have you done on this? Where's your Facebook page? Can you give me some references? Like, that contractor right there can make or break the deal. So I would definitely say people, get great people involved, hire good people, pay them well, treat them well, and everything else will fall into place.
Fantastic. This has been great. And folks, there's been a lot of golden nuggets here. I mean, just a lot of things that have happened that Tony's done that you really should look at, apply to your business, really look at how can you make your business better? Are you stuck working in your business? Do you need to get out and work on your business and, find the ways to do that? Well, there's a lot of ways to do it, but one of the easiest is just to find somebody that's already done it. And Tony's already done it. He's got his company, Real Estate Masters. I don't know if you're still doing masterminds, but you've got the gap funding, the mastermind, you got all sorts of things. How do people learn more about what you do and how to work with you?
Yeah, if you go to, I'll give you two different websites. REM Mastermind stands for Real Estate Masters. REMmastermind.com has most of what you can see there. You can look at our masterminds. You can look at our gap funding. And what I'm getting ready to launch soon is Real Estate Masters TV. So I've been doing TV for 8 years now. Feel like I've mastered it. We're getting 11 times return on our investment on it. And on top of that, it's building credibility in our market. We're the go-to. It's done so much for my business. So now I'm teaching other people how to do it. And I'm also implementing for them, producing the commercials, buying the media for them, the whole 9 yards. So you can go to realestatemasters.tv.com and see if your market's available. And I'd love to help you out there as well.
Great. So folks, we'll put that in the show notes here so you can check it out, but it's remmastermind.com and realestatemasters.tv.com. So make sure you check that out. And Tony, thank you so very much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, Chris, love what you're doing, man. I appreciate you having me on and look forward to connecting again.
My pleasure. And for all of you folks that are just watching this, I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you got some golden nuggets. Remember what I said in the beginning. It's not about the knowledge. It's about the application of knowledge. So go to chrisnoggle.com and click free book to grab the private money guide or mapping out the millionaire mystery. If nothing else, that free book will be your first step into taking action on what you just learned. So folks, we'll talk to you on the next episode. Have a good day.